5:30. Well, it has to be one of the biggest tourism attractions proposed for North Queensland in a very long time, involving, among many other things, the development of 200 villa five-star resort, a 200 villa five-star resort, I should say, to be built in the heartland of rainforest near Kuranda. And the draft environmental impact statement on the proposed KUR World Eco Resort has been released by the Queensland Coordinator General for public feedback. To run us through some of what is inside it, KUR World Project and Development Manager Mark Lawson is with us on Northern Drive, and he's here to talk about some of what the EIS has had to say in relation to the project's potential impacts on the environment and its social impacts. Mark Lawson, welcome to Northern Drive.
Thanks for having us, Adam.
I did a pretty poor job of explaining what the project proposes. Among many things, a five-star resort. But could you, for those that don't know much about it, and given we're broadcasting to all of North Queensland, there'll be people that have never heard of the KUR World project. What is it that you're proposing to build there?
Adam, I've got to stop you there. It's not KUR World, it's KUR World.
KUR
so
World.
Can I please just get that across to you? That's okay.
I'll know that for future reference. KUR World.
So KUR World, yeah. KUR World is an integrated eco resort. It does consist of a 200-room villa-style five-star resort, a four-star 270 apartment hotel, a series of residential options including lifestyle villas and other sized residential options. And at the base of it, it's a nature-based adventure park based around a series of cattle farm tourism, farm theme park, but it contains accommodation options to suit all levels from budget-style glamping units to five-star luxury apartments.
And where exactly is this proposed to be built?
So it's proposed to be built in Myola, which is just nearby Kuranda, about 4 kilometres down the road along Myola Road, and Kuranda is 22 kilometres northwest of Cairns.
It's a really interesting spot for a development like this. Do you know why the proponent, Ken Lee, decided that was where he wanted to build it?
When he first visited here in Australia, he obviously fell in love with Cairns. He's been here a series of times, obviously, before buying the land. He used to work in this neck of the woods as well, and he fell in love with the parcel of land. He bought it at auction and just thought it'd be a great place to expose nature-based activities to the rest of the world, and that's his intention from day one, really.
It's an interesting site as well, in that it's not an area that there's a development like this anywhere nearby, and maybe that's why it's attracted so much interest and also a bit of concern from the nearby community. So I just wanted to get your response and how the EIS addresses some of the things that some of the local groups have been saying in relation to the project. One is, and this is from the Kuranda Region Planning Group, that KUR World is too big and has been placed in an area that's too environmentally sensitive. What's your response to that concern?
I would say that the entire of tropical North Queensland is an environmentally sensitive area. Does that mean that the area is off limits for development? I'd like to think no. But what the EIS process does do is it forces developers to go through a very regimented process to ensure that it's looking at all the constraints, it's trying to manage or mitigate any of those issues that may arise, if it makes you identify any of the flora and fauna issues that are present on the property, and forces you to manage those in a really responsible way.
So would you consider relocating the development so that it doesn't have such a big impact on the environment?
The short answer, that's probably no. We got no doubt that through the EIS process we've responded to all of those flora fauna issues that are present, including the community issues with the range road. There's more than one issue, and it's been a complicated, slow process because we've taken our time to try and make sure we understood what all the issues were and then put things in place to try and manage or at least delete them if possible, if not decrease the impacts on all parties.
How many people would be utilising the development if it's developed in its entirety, the $650 million development? How many people would it draw to that part of the tablelands there?
If all 3 stages come to reality, it's planned to be built in 3 stages over around 9 to 10 years. It will house up to 2,000 tourists a day and will employ in excess of 1,400 full-time equivalent jobs, which is full-time, part-time, casual people combined.
So road transportation is obviously an issue that you need to address. You probably can't put an extra lane on the Kuranda Range Road, but in your draft EIS, what do you do in relation to traffic and traffic flow?
The Range Road is one of the major issues, and we have not balked away from that fact. It's an issue now. If anyone's driven that road, especially in the wet, it's a problem. So we're working closely with the department, TMR, to try and increase various mitigation measures, including variable signs, increase in intersection upgrades, and a host of other measures that will become a lot clearer in the coming 40 days during the public notification period.
You're hearing this afternoon from Mark Lawson, the Project and Development Manager with KUR World. It's a $650 million proposed project for just near Kuranda on the Tablelands west of Cairns. Mark here to talk through some of the stuff that's in the draft environmental impact statement that is now out for release. It's been released by the Queensland Coordinator General and is now out for public feedback for, as Mark says, the next 40 days. I suspect one thing you're going to be hearing quite a bit about, Mark, is that locals don't believe there's enough detail in relation to some of the concerns they have about the environment in the draft EIS. What do you have to say about that in terms of the level of detail you've gone into about the potential impacts on things like the frog species that are on that block of land?
I think that everyone's got the right to be concerned, especially in a very environmentally sensitive area like Myola is. And yes, there is a species of frog called the Myola tree frog, which is a federally endangered species found on the property. We've done everything in our power to modify the master plan to ensure that by protecting the vegetation, you protect the species. So by ensuring, when we talk about buffer zones, we've got areas around the species habitat where they live that won't be touched. The development footprint's been decreased significantly from its original creation to what it is now, and it's a moving process. There may be further changes in.
How much has the project changed since it was first mooted a couple of years ago? There's been a lot of people saying a lot of things about it. Have you taken that on board, and if so, what have you done to change the project?
Absolutely. I think early 2016 was the original concept for KUR World, and I think we're up to revision H of the master plan. So there's been a series of iterative changes. I've said eight changes in the master plan, which has really resulted in, as we've received reports and feedback from the field, we've looked at where the development footprint is active, where it can't be active. We've looked at the species, where they're found, where they're not found, and we've tried to modify the footprint to suit within that very sensitive environmental area. So for us, the eco side of the business is very, very important, and it's in our best interest as well as everyone else's to ensure that the environmental nature of that property is maintained and protected and even put on display, which is our intention.
Mark Lawson, you say your resorts master plan has been revised to incorporate greater environmental considerations, including buffer zones, to ensure the protection of the Myola tree frog. But environmentalists say they're still concerned about your development's impact on the frog's aquatic breeding ground. What guarantee can you give that the development would use international best practice and not change groundwater infiltration, which is crucial to ensure the waterways surrounding your development are kept as healthy as possible?
Again, with the development footprint, it's been reduced drastically. We believe that protecting the vegetation, we protect the species. We've got not great water quality on the property now, and we have absolutely made a commitment that we will produce a non-worsening effect to water quality on the property. So we understand, water quality is very, very important. We get that. We have made the commitment that there will be a non-worsening effect on water quality as a result of this project proceeding, if it proceeds in its current scale and size.
If approved, how many jobs would there be with this KUR World construction, through the construction and then permanent jobs?
So if we realise the full scope of the project, the full 3 stages over 9 to 10 years, it's in excess of 1,400 full-time, part-time and casual jobs at the completion of the project. So that's operational numbers, and during construction the peak would probably rise in stage 2, where it'd be obviously much greater than that when you've got some stages operating and some stages still under construction.
There is an element of a university coming on board with you. Has that university been identified? Has there anything been signed yet?
It hasn't, no, but they were looking at a couple of different options there. They were looking at local options and also options overseas, but there may be more than one. There may be more selling space and a university floor, and maybe a JCU or equivalent option. There may be an overseas university, but no university's been identified as actually taking the space yet. 40
days now, people have a chance to have a look at the document you have released, this draft EIS, and they can have their input. How seriously do you have to take any information that comes to you, any complaints or any suggestions that come to you from the public?
Yeah, very seriously. So this stage now is more about inviting submissions, inviting people, inviting any group, party, entity would like to make a submission on the project, and the CG's office, the Coordinator General's office, takes this process very seriously, and as a result forces any proponent to. So we'll take the submissions on board. There may be further modifications to the master plan at the end of this stage. Keep in mind this is a draft EIS, it's not a final. So there will likely be some changes to the project after this point in time as a result of the submissions being collated once we know what they all are.
So it's a big project. You don't get projects with the figures like this thrown around very often in North Queensland. $650 million if it's built to its full 3 stages. And as you say, about 2,000 people would be visiting the site each and every day, was that?
That's right.
Yeah, so it's a big project for North Queensland, so a lot of interest in it. And as you say, where can people find more information if they do want to A, read the EIS, or B, just they hadn't heard much about this and they want to know more?
A, good luck reading the EIS. It's a very big document. It's over 4,000 pages. So the best way to scope for information, it's in all the local libraries, Carandas, Cairns, Smithfield, Mareeba. But the best way is probably to go to the Coordinator General website and look at a digital copy. It's if you want to print a version out, it's extensive. So yeah, online is probably the best option to try and see. Coordinator General's office, care of State Development.
And Ken Lee is the proponent. He is just very quickly for those that don't know much about him. What's Ken Lee's story?
So the proponent is Riva Ocean, which is a company which Ken Lee is a director of. So Ken is an Australian citizen that spends his time between Macau and Australia. His background has been heavily involved in casinos here and also overseas, but he's got a really strong interest on trying to showcase the local environment overseas. So we hope to bring inbound tours. We hope to invite the public to the property. It's not just a project that's going to be pigeonholed for one particular clientele. We want to open the property up and show all the environmental issues that the property has, and we want to put them on display. So Ken understands that, and he's on board with ensuring that any environmental issues are managed properly.
And how confident is he can get that money? It's a lot of money for a development like this.
It's a lot of money. It'll be staged. So it's important that if first stage obviously does not proceed or does not work, then stage 2 won't proceed. So it's important to understand that this is probably not a traditional funding model, and that it's going to be funded primarily by private investment, which is really important. And yeah, if the first stage is not successful, then stage 2 won't proceed. So it's like anything else. We have to walk before we run, and that's what Ken has to demonstrate, and the whole team.
You've heard from Mark Lawson this afternoon, Project and Development Manager with KUR World, which is a big project slated for the hills west of Cairns, just near Coranda. And Mark has been with us to talk about the draft EIS. As he said, you can find it online, and you are welcome to submit any feedback that you have if that is something that interests or affects you. Mark Lawson, we'll be hearing from you no doubt more over the coming weeks and months, but thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Mark Lawson with us, the time 5:20. We'll find out what weather...